In the time-honored tradition of UU Congregation of Frederick Interns, as Carl mentioned, my final sermon for you all is titled, What Really Matters. As I told Carl a few weeks ago, I know I don't need to overthink my sermons so much, but how am I not supposed to overthink this one? Ultimately, I went with my first thought, love. Love really matters. And I know, it's been a lot on love lately, what with the new UU values and love is at the center, but world religions and philosophies have been talking about love probably since humans could talk, so I don't think that Carl and I are likely to exhaust the topic anytime soon, at least not in the near future. And this morning, I'll focus on 3 ways of loving. Love for each other, love for the stranger, and to fall in love with the world. And I'm mapping these onto the image of the 3 sisters garden, interplanting corn, beans, and rice, a time-tested Native American technology. Why the 3 sisters? Because it's spring, and because it's a trinity this Unitarian is comfortable with. I think that it's easiest to love the people you actually like. And for me, that includes you all. Community, loving each other, is a good place to start in practicing the spiritual discipline that is love. For this kind of love for each other, I've chosen the beans. Think peas in a pod. Think of the bean vine wrapping and weaving, growing tall by holding close. In my own garden, I'm watching the shoots of my sugar snap peas reach out with their curling tendrils. On their way to the trellis, they cling to each other, holding each other up as they climb. Bean pods are sweet when harvested young, and isn't life sweeter when shared? Beans can also be dried and stored for winter soup. I think of the hearty bean soup delivered as part of a meal train. I think of our midwinter chili, casserole, and carol sing potluck. Is there anything more warming than community, singing carols, and a boatload of beautiful beans? This kind of love in community, love for each other, I associate with our value of interdependence. We are a part of an interdependent web as big as all existence, but we feel its strongest tugs up close. We need each other. And while I'm yet to find any objective, ultimate meaning out there, I have found all the meaningfulness, all the meaning and fullness that I need right here, up close, in our mutual need and our mutual care as humans. In May of 2022, as my first year of seminary drew to a close, my small community at Wesley Seminary suddenly lost our beloved friend and classmate, Lisa. Lisa was the kind of person who wrote thank you notes year-round for no particular occasion, whose definition of Sabbath was hollering in a crowded basketball stadium, and who toted around baggies of animal crackers to give to anyone who looked like they might need a snack. In the week following Lisa's death, I wrote in a reflection, "The best I can do is to hang around campus. Being there for each other gives us all something to do. I can sit down on a bench, not knowing what to do with myself, but then someone comes along who needs someone to sit with. And then we both have a purpose. I'm there to be next to her, and she's there to be next to me." Not all of the care of community happens in crisis. In fact, the majority of the stewardship of community happens in the mundane. One of the things that impressed me most this year was how much happens in this congregation without me having any idea how it works. Your congregation has grown to a size where no one, not even your minister, maybe especially not your minister if he knows what's good for him, can have a hand in everything. On Sunday morning, I can trust that welcoming team will greet newcomers, that there will be fresh flowers adorning the front of the sanctuary, and that there will be hot coffee in time for middle hour. Many hands are involved in the stewardship of these shared and sacred spaces, from our Zoom room to our art gallery to the litter-free shoulders of Elmer Durr Road. Through chalice groups and labyrinth walks, book groups and chair yoga, choir and coffee houses, religious education, and so much more, all of us bring this shared ministry to life. If you're looking for an example of what we can do together that we could not do alone, here it is. I don't believe that everyone needs a UU congregation, but I do believe everyone needs community. Up close with each other is where we can build trust, experience mutuality, and practice the discipline of love. This passage by Howard Thurman spoke to me particularly in the aftermath of losing my friend Lisa. These words are by Thurman, pronouns are my own. Thurman writes, "The concern for reconciliation, for wholeness, finds expression in the simple human desire to understand others and to be understood. Every person wants to be cared for, to be sustained by the assurance that she shares in the watchful and thoughtful attention of others in general, but also in particular. She wants to know that however vast and impersonal all life about her may seem, however hard may be the stretch of road on which she is journeying, she is not alone." Although community takes effort, in community we access something essential. In each other, we conjure this hidden in plain sight magic, this intangible element, as though we pulled it from thin air. The beans call this element nitrogen. And just as the humble bean plant nourishes the soil by pulling nitrogen from the air and sending it down into its roots, in community we access nourishment and grow roots that in turn nourish the world around us. And this brings me to my second kind of love, love for the stranger. Love that reaches out beyond our pod. For this kind of love, love for the stranger, I've chosen the squash. The squash plant spreads, vining in all directions, exploring the garden. Love for the stranger is a love that reaches out into the world. Love for the stranger is also a love that confronts the inexhaustible needs of the world. And can you think of any vegetable more inexhaustible than the summer zucchini? Love the stranger is a clear and persistent mandate in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic teaching. The Torah, also known as the 5 books of Moses, commands care for the stranger dozens of times, more times than any other commandment, even the commandment to love God. While the Bible is a collection of narratives, letters, laws, poetry, and proverbs collected over centuries, a consistent motif is concern for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. In the ancient world, the widow, the orphan, and the stranger you could think of as a shorthand for the marginalized, the oppressed. In a patriarchal society, fatherless children and widowed women were totally vulnerable, without citizenship, property, or protection. And the stranger, ger, also translated foreigner, alien, or refugee, these were also non-land-owning members of the community, likely ethnic minorities, and without the protection of familial networks. Honestly, I don't need to explain to you how immigrants were a marginalized group in the ancient world, because looking at America today, it doesn't feel like we've made much progress in these thousands of years. In that ancient context, and maybe even today, it was a radical commandment to declare that care for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger was a collective responsibility. The scriptures make provisions for care that are both specific, give away 1/10 of your crop, for example, and expansive. Who all is included in this stranger? Well, I'm with Jesus on this one. You know, Jesus, the radical socialist who went around preaching love thy neighbor. Jesus emphasized the Hebrew teachings to love God and neighbor And on the occasion that he was asked to define who exactly is my neighbor, he answered with the parable of the Good Samaritan. Essentially, the neighbor we are to love does not exclude the stranger on the side of the road in need of help. In fact, the neighbor we are to love is most especially and essentially that stranger. Our responsibility to care and to love excludes no one. Which is why I frame this second kind of love as love for the stranger. For me, the call to care for and love the stranger is one of the most compelling and challenging teachings we inherit from our Judeo-Christian forebears as Unitarian Universalists. Choosing to love the stranger, and remember, love is a discipline, a practice that must be chosen over and over again, opens us up to the heartache of the world. To me, love is both a feeling and a commitment. A feeling and a commitment. And when I say to love the stranger, I mean both to commit to action rooted in love, work for justice, and to open yourself to the heartache of the world. It is a different kind of love to love folks in your most intimate community and to love the unnamed stranger suffering the effects of war or discrimination or climate catastrophe. But both are kinds of love. Both pull on the same altruistic impulses, and both make us vulnerable to pain and grief. It feels almost cruel asking you to care for such a heartbreaking world. I'm only asking you to do so because to do otherwise would be a denial of our basic humanity. If the choice for our heart is to shut down or to break open, I'm choosing broken humanity. This past summer, I was a hospital chaplain intern. My site was the National Institutes of Health Clinical Center, which is a unique hospital in that there's no emergency room. Rather than the one-off encounters of an emergency room, I had the opportunity to get close with former strangers. An important part of my summer was accompanying individuals and their loved ones as they confronted, accepted, and anticipated death. In this accompaniment, I had to give more attention to how I make sense of grief, suffering, and mortality. A key for me was the inseparability of love and grief. I cannot imagine love without longing and loss. And while I cannot offer any answer that would neatly resolve the pain of the human condition, I am moved by the human impulse to create meaning out of suffering and joy, out of life and death. In 2020, the Bengsons released a song titled "The Keep Going Song," live from our home at the end of the world. Although it was written for that moment, it continues to speak to me these 5 years later. I listen to it often. Abigail Bengson sings, "If your heart is breaking, I hope it's breaking open. And if your breath is shaking, I hope it's shaking through. And I hope you find a hand lotion that actually makes your hands feel better." If you have ever accidentally grown a pumpkin or observed a pumpkin growing in what looks like an unplanned spot, then you have seen the potential in breaking open. Breaking open is the pumpkin's whole purpose. The lucky ones are abandoned to the elements, where creatures small and even microscopic eat their fill and take their toll. In this inglorious breaking open, that is how the seeds spill out, some even finding their way to fertile ground. Finally, stay in love with the world. Keep falling in love with the world. I could have called this category self-love or self-care, but when I say love yourself, what I really mean to do is to do the things that make you love life itself. The practice of self-love looks like the practices that keep you in love with the world. For this kind of love, I was tempted to replace the corn with a sunflower in my metaphorical Three Sisters garden. Looking at the sunflower, she feels like a reflection of this kind of love in my life. Beauty for beauty's sake. Yes, a source of nutrition, but first and foremost, a showstopper. Corn may provide grain to sustain the herd through winter, but the sunflower, dried and hung, can attract little birds to watch out your kitchen window. The sunflower is so named because she turns to face the sun, always orienting herself to her life source, to the source of her energy. Still, the Three Sisters garden is tried and true, and there is certain beauty in the corn stalk. Not all corn is destined for syrup or ethanol. Biting into the perfect ear of buttered sweet corn, for example, warm tortillas, a homemade heating pad. Heck, I'll even admit it, I do love a bag of candy corn. Throughout my young adulthood, in the many ministries that I've attempted, which is to say, in all of my imperfect attempts at practicing love, I've experienced various degrees of burnout. And I've gotten to know a lot of you all, and I know you all have been making your own attempts at practicing love. Most of you for longer than I. I know you're engaged in commitments that I would call ministries in your professional or personal lives. Has anyone here ever experienced burnout or teetered on the edge of burnout? When I've teetered on burnout, I need to return to basics. My ministry cannot be perpetually motivated by the next deadline. If that is how I'm feeling, then I've lost the point. I've lost my center. In other words, I need to like my life. You do too. Just last Sunday, I attended an immigrant accompaniment training facilitated by the DMV Accompaniment Network at a nearby UU congregation. And I learned something new. The training included what was really a crash course in trauma-informed care. I'd heard of that one before. And trauma stewardship. That was a new one for me. Trauma stewardship? Aren't we supposed to steward like good things, this building, the earth, as I'm sure stewardship committee could tell you, cold hard cash? But when we arrived on this slide on trauma stewardship, it was really about self-care. Of course, in any accompaniment work, whether it's formal and comes with a training, or most often the accompaniment of being human together, we cannot fix or erase each other's trauma. At best, we are stewards to each other's trauma and to our own. In her article, Moving from Compassion Fatigue to Compassion Resilience, academic and veterinarian Debbie Stowen offers a research-based understanding of compassion fatigue, a common problem for those in the caring professions, and how to overcome it. She writes, "We do not have to limit compassion or turn away from caring to prevent compassion fatigue. On the contrary, firstly, there is no such thing as prevention. And secondly, resilience requires us to do quite the opposite, to lean into caring and to increase compassion. Resiliency is a learned skill, a muscle that you can exercise. And the practices Stowen recommends are probably familiar to you. Self-care, to invest in your body, mind, and spirit, and learning what the practices are that sustain your energy and sustain your hope, what makes you come alive, learning what that is and practicing it. Mindfulness, anchoring yourself to the present, and self-compassion, which is both speaking to yourself in a kind way and also viewing how you act in terms of your common humanity, seeing your struggles not as something that sets you apart from other people, but as what makes you a part of this shared human condition. Cultivating compassion for others, compassion training. An example of this is Buddhist loving kindness meditation, or meditating on compassion. Growing compassion satisfaction. Compassion satisfaction is just an academic term for that good feeling you get when you do something good, how things feel rewarding. Be mindful of opportunities to make a difference, meaning seek out those opportunities and savor them when they happen. And social support. We have lots of research to show that social support supports your physical and mental health, for those who are in the work of caring, and for all of us. And building a support system around yourself takes effort. It's often people who spend the most time caring for others neglect building that network of support for themselves. It is work, it's an effort, but connect with the communities that you're already in, that you're a part of, and especially with the closest relationships in your life. Quality of relationship is so important. Like the cornstalk, our self-care, our stewardship of the many practices that keep us in love with the world is central to all of the ways that we practice love. In the Three Sisters garden, the beans fix nitrogen, replenishing the soil and creating fertile ground for growth. The squash shades the soil, maintaining a viable living environment for all. And the corn grows tall, a tall support structure. The Three Sisters are healthier for their interconnection. And our own practice of the spiritual discipline of love, love for each other, love for the stranger, and for living itself, these have to be practiced together. Our focus may shift throughout the season, but a sustainable, grounded practice of love will require attention to all three. I know for certain very little about life, but I'm confident that loving really matters. May our practice of love be resilient, joyful, committed, and never complete. Thank you.
Amen.